Are you wondering what to do since you just had a C-section? Maybe you were expecting to have a C-section, maybe you weren't. Maybe the experience has been a little traumatic, to say the least. Your body was, for the most part, cut open and your baby was taken out of your body. And how do they get the body back together? They have to stitch the layers of the C-section scar. Usually there are 7 layers that they're working through, the uterus being one layer, and then there's multiple layers of fascia, peritoneum, and muscle and skin that they then stitch up to help close the body. The very first thing I need you to know is that C-section healing takes time. So yes, you're told, get up, start walking, move your body, and that's all well and good. So this is a massive surgery, and with everything that has gone on, and now you're a new mom and you're adapting to either baby being at home or having a new baby, there is so much to learn. Not only are you learning your new body and your incision and how to protect yourself without further hurting yourself, you're also learning how to care for a newborn. So congratulations, and I want to help you heal from your C-section. But what needs to happen is that we need the scar to heal. This scar healing usually takes for the wound to close and the body to regenerate scar tissue to make sure that nothing reopens. That process takes 6 to 8 weeks. A lot of times it can be earlier, a lot of times it can be slower, but when we have that process happening, when we develop that scar tissue, it helps to create our core being more stable and sewed back together. It doesn't mean that the muscles are working again, but it does mean that it is safe to start moving more and doing a bit more. And if you are itching to get back to your exercise routine or at least do some kind of movement and feel completely lost, this video is absolutely for you. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what is safe to do when you are healing from your C-section. So the minute you go home from the hospital, you all of a sudden start having to move, pick up your baby, and do other activities that are going to affect your body and require you to use a lot of your core muscles. But because your core muscles have been stitched up, they're not as effective for you, so you start using other muscles. So the very first thing we want to do is to start to turn on pieces of the core. The core can be looked at as a soda pop can. The front is the abdominal wall, the back is the low back muscles and the glute muscles, the top is your diaphragm, which is how we breathe, and the bottom is your pelvic floor. Now you're like, I had a C-section, my pelvic floor wasn't affected. The deal is the pelvic floor is actually highly affected. There are some fascial connections down to the pelvic floor that when you have a C-section are tightened, and they can change the pattern of how the pelvic floor is actually working. So the pelvic floor is the bottom of the core, and it is responsible for peeing, pooping, and sexual function. Even though you've had a C-section, it is still recommended to not start sexual intercourse until you are 6 to 8 weeks postpartum and you stopped having locatia or the bleeding that has occurred since the C-section. And bleeding vaginally definitely happens because that is how the uterus is healing and contracting down to be its normal size. So a lot of times when people have a C-section, they're like, I wasn't expecting to bleed, but the bleeding through the vagina is just the uterus contracting back down to its original size to help get back to normal and help the body recoil fully. So where do we start this C-section healing and how do we go about it? I'm going to give you some tips that you can start doing from day one. A couple of these tips, if they don't feel good in your body, you just don't do them. But all of these tips are very, very safe for any abdominal incision, and I just need you to do them gently and slowly. So we're going to get started here. From the minute that you are in your hospital bed to when you are home, the very first thing we're going to do is some very gentle diaphragmatic breathing with pelvic floor opening. This is going to help get the muscles and the fascia and everything that was stitched together is going to help move it again and just bring some movement and blood flow back into the core. So here we go. Depending on where you are at after your cesarean, it might not be comfortable to straighten your legs yet. So if it is not comfortable to lie flat on your back and straighten your legs, then you can simply put a couple pillows underneath your knees to provide support. If it's not comfortable to keep your legs fully flat yet, you can start adding pillows underneath the knees or simply just keep your knees bent. And then as things become more healed, you can start straightening your legs more and more and doing this breathing exercise with pelvic floor opening with the legs fully straight. But again, you don't want to force anything and you don't want to create major stretching, at least not within the first 6 to 8 weeks. And so we're going to keep our knees bent to start, and you can progressively work your legs into a straight position. You're going to place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. You're going to take a nice deep breath into the hand on the belly, deep breath into the belly, and exhale and let it go. You're not forcing the air to go any direction other than towards your belly. So you don't want the hand on the chest to rise and fall too much. You want the majority of the rise and the fall to be on the abdominal wall. And again, you're not touching right on the C-section scar. You are touching above the scar and just slowly guiding the air underneath the hand on the belly. Deep breath in, exhale and let it go. The reason we want to add pelvic floor opening to this is because after we are stitched here, oftentimes there's an upward elevation that is pulled, then the fascia goes into the second layer of the pelvic floor and creates an upward connection and lifting of the pelvic floor, and we want to help restore the normal motion of the pelvic floor. And so we want to do some pelvic floor opening with the breathing. This is going to help stimulate healing your core and getting your core to work for you. You're going to deep breath into your belly, exhale and let it go. 5 minutes a day. Now to add the pelvic floor piece, you want to think about inhaling into your belly. As you inhale, you want your pelvic floor to open. You want your vagina and your anus to open with the inhale. Exhale, you're going to get some natural recoil. As I inhale into my belly, vagina opens. Exhale, let it go. Now there's no stress on my scar. I'm just simply using my lungs to help movement back to my abdominal organs and then underneath the scar. So you're kind of stretching it from the inside out. And again, this is so gentle that it's not a stretch, it's really just a stimulation. And you might not feel it in your scar, but you might feel it in your scar. And you're just doing this very gently without forcing the air to go anywhere. So this is diaphragmatic breathing with pelvic floor opening. And this is the very first step to start healing from your C-section scar. The next exercise that we are going to do is going to be a core stimulation exercise. We are going to get our transverse abdominis to start to activate. Now this is the abdominal muscle that was cut open. And the deal is we want this muscle working for us as quickly as humanly possible. So this muscle lays underneath, below the belly button, under here, and when it contracts together and lifts up. So imagine if your two hip bones are here. When it's contracted, everything pulls up and in. Let it go, hangs out, and then as it contracts, pulls up and in. And you're not doing a Kegel with this activation, you are just simply working on getting that contraction back. Really, you can start this right after surgery. You just have to not do it till any pain or discomfort. You're just stimulating the muscle. And I'm going to show you how to do that while you use your breath. Because if we can use your breath, it's going to take all the pressure off, starting to activate this muscle after surgery. So here we go. Now with our transverse abdominis activation, you are going to contract, bringing these two hip bones together and elevating the pubic bone towards the belly button. You're doing this ever so gently with like a 5 to 10% effort. So there's not a lot happening here. So you can see that like it's just barely, ever so slightly going to contract together and elevate up. And then if that feels okay, what you can do is you can add a breath component. So you're going to exhale using the SH sound, a shh sound, as you contract and elevate. And when you exhale using the shh sound, that can sometimes help just often turn this muscle on. That's right between the hip bones. I like to keep my hands here to feel that activation. Now, if your C-section scar is very wide and high, not feel comfortable touching it yet, and you can tune into the video on desensitization after this video. But if you can touch above the scar, you will feel that muscle activate, and then you'll let it go. And even if it's really sensitive or you actually don't have sensation at all, you'll still place your hands there and just try to get your brain to connect to that muscle underneath your fingertips. Again, you'll do this contraction using the shh sound, exhale and let it go, and that is a transverse abdominal contraction. Now, when we do that, you can hold that 5 to 10 seconds and repeat that 10 times. Now, this shouldn't be painful on the scar, and it's a lot less aggressive than walking, than carrying your kid. And again, you're gonna do that from the minute after surgery. And so really you can start this day 1, day 2, whenever you feel the wherewithal to start activating these muscles. And I like the idea of touching at least around the muscle so you can feel it activate and start connecting your brain down to this absolutely essential muscle that needs to be activated once you have a C-section. So we just reviewed the diaphragmatic breathing with pelvic floor opening, the transverse abdominal contraction using your breath to help activate the muscle. And now we are going to go through a very gentle cat-cow movement to help bring some movement and mobility back into your pelvis. So join me here in the all fours position as we go into this cat-cow. Okay, so we reviewed the diaphragmatic breathing with pelvic floor opening, and we also reviewed the transverse abdominal activation with your breath to help decrease the pressure on the scar, but start getting activation of the right core muscles that you'll need to be using for the rest of your life and or throughout your next pregnancy in order to help heal your body and keep your joints safe and strong. So now we're going to add the final piece of the puzzle, which is going to be just some gentle movement to get some safe mobility back into your pelvis and into your spine. This is, again, safe and okay to do, and you're not going to force any of the movement, and you can start this around day 1 or 2. This is not, an aggressive exercise. You have to do this ever so gently. So in a modified position, we are going to do a cat-cow movement with your feet separated. You're going to be here. You're going to tuck your tailbone, tuck your head, and then gently reach your tailbone to the back wall. Look your head straight ahead. Tuck and reach up. Tuck and reach up. It's really gentle. There is not a lot of stretch across the scar, and these are just the very first 3 steps that need to happen in order for you to heal from your C-section scar. There is a whole slew of what needs to come down the line when we're talking after the 6 to 8 week mark. We want to start to dissolve the scar on all the layers, not just the skin layer. The skin layer is only the aesthetic piece. The deeper scar layers are the ones that are going to affect your low back and the ones that can create more issues down the line if not dealt with. So we want to get everything moving in your belly, and I know that might sound scary right now as the scar is so fresh and this procedure is so fresh in your mind, but the reality is if we can start to dissolve this scar tissue as quickly as possible, we are going to save you a lifelong of chasing aches and pains in your body because your core hasn't been working in the right way for you. So it is my mission to make sure that C-section moms get the help that they need in order to restore their core, so they're not ending up with joint replacements, not ending up in diapers and Depends, and can truly live their fit and healthiest life, and or also be prepared for a VBAC if that's what they hope to have in the future. So I'm Dr. Allison Felt. I hope you found this useful, and please leave comments below and I can help answer the question specifically. You can also join us for a free consultation at our Poulsbo clinic or our Edmonds location today, and we are so happy that you are taking initiative to heal your body after the C-section. Take care.